This podcast is sponsored in part by Benjamin Hart.
That's me!
And yours truly, Zach Arnold.
And by participation from listeners like you. So let's tune in to another episode of
IPC.
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 IPC. IPC.
IPC.
IPC.
IPC. The Intergalactic Peace Coalition podcast.
All the galaxies.
All for you. Hey, what's up, Peacekeepers? It's time for another edition of the Intergalactic Peace Coalition podcast, broadcasting live on Fandom Empire and going to be pre-recorded and distributed on all of our podcasting platforms at the immediate conclusion of this live broadcast. But we're so grateful to have you along for what's shaping up to be a pretty important discussion, not only amongst Star Wars fans, but I think just as far as the scope of television and storytelling is concerned, this is a pretty significant discussion. I know of at least two other podcasts that are talking about this particular show tonight. So, like, we're kind of in competition with our friends a little bit. There's going to be regular people that are supposed to be in the chat that are, like, over at their podcast talking about it over there. So this is a pretty big discussion, all right? So put on your seatbelts or strap yourselves into whatever is closest to you, because it's time to talk about the Bad Batch. I'm Zach. Over here. Oh, I got to point that way.
Over there. I got you now. No, I'm going the wrong direction. This is so bad.
We're going to have to edit that out from the audio description because nobody's going to know that we were like fake punching.
No, not editing this out. Guys, you got to watch the video version to understand all the visual gags. It's just how it works.
High five, Ben. Good to see you. See, hands going the wrong way.
See, it doesn't work. My brain, man.
All turned around. But back here with Ben talking about the season finale and just the season as a whole of the Bad Batch on.
Absolutely.
And dude, we got 16 episodes. We talked about like the first episode, maybe like the first two episodes when we made the transition over to Phantom Empire. Our very first Phantom Empire
episode, I forgot about that.
Talking about the Bad Batch. It took us like an hour and a half to get there because we were also doing a whole bunch of other celebrations and stuff. But we were talking about the Bad Batch, and now we're back to kind of bring it all full circle and talk about it some more. Very excited to be bringing that to our listeners and to the live chat on Phantom Empire. Let's just go ahead and dive right in with some spoiler-free impressions, I guess.
Yeah.
And then we'll circle back to the one other piece of Star Wars related news that we need to touch on tonight. But I'm just so excited to talk about the Bad Batch, man. Like, I personally really, really enjoyed the cameos that we got in this show.
That's a lot of them. There's a lot of good ones.
A lot. I got a note card here. Look at there's like all of these note.
Oh my gosh.
Note card from like the different cameos that I remember, and then some of the regular appearances that we got from characters that didn't have a whole lot of screen time on other shows. I think that's probably one of my favorite components of this show. There are certain episodes that also kind of make me feel like I'm not even watching an animated feature. There are episodes that the detailing is just so great that I forget that it's a cartoon. And so I'm stoked about what they did, and I'm glad that it's getting a season 2. That's my like spoiler-free initial thoughts. Was heck of a ride, and I'm ready to ride that train again whenever season 2 drops.
I'm gonna echo everything you said, and like the production value alone. Like, this is one of the best looking animated shows I've ever seen. Like, it's phenomenal. I didn't think like the Clone Wars was so amazing, and it kept getting even more amazing as it went. I didn't think they could top that, but apparently they did. And it just continued that, and just the sound design and everything, the production and the animation has been so incredible in this first season, and arguably some of the best animation I think we've ever seen for Star Wars. And then just that alone is great, but also you have the story, you have the characters, which I all really enjoyed and really loved. And I think that this was a great first season of Star Wars. I think it's one of the strongest first seasons of a Star Wars series that we've seen so far. And I think I think it's one up, because I think we've got a lot of great seasons of Star Wars animation.
Sure.
But like Clone Wars, I would say this is better than Clone Wars' first season. Like, as much as I love that season, it's very hit and miss. There's some really great episodes. There's some really okay episodes.
Mm-hmm.
I would personally rank Bad Batch above it because I think it was so strong. Yeah, I've got some criticisms. I've got something. I wanted more Echo, all right? I wanted more of this or that. There was a couple episodes that I'm like, was kind of bored by. But overall, I think it went in the right direction, telling a linear story, introducing us to these characters, reintroducing them really, but introducing us to Omega and some new characters, and really just going all out. I think the Bad Batch is very strong, and I'm with you. I can't wait for season 2.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. But do you feel like perhaps this first season, I don't know, benefits maybe from having such a solid foundation in the Clone Wars? You know, there's a precedent for the animation style now. There's a precedent for the characters, and what to explore and what to expect. It doesn't go into itself as blindly as shows like Clone Wars or Rebels did, where it's still kind of sorting itself out in the first season. By its very nature, the Bad Batch is essentially an extension of the Clone Wars. So
Yeah.
if they really wanted to, they could have called this like the Clone Wars season 8 or whatever. But as we notice in the final 2 episodes of this series, they give us a very visual and very definite description that lets us know beyond the shadow of a doubt that the Clone Wars is officially over.
Yeah, it is. It's not a standalone series. It is, but it isn't. It is a true sequel to the Clone Wars. I dare say, I think someone coming into this would be left out of a lot of stuff. It would be confused at times. I mean, this show literally picks up. If you've seen the film, you have the reference point of Revenge of the Sith and Order 66 and all that. I think that works. That could work, but there is some other cameos. Captain Rex shows up. Cad Bane shows up. There's a lot of stuff happens.
Oh, man.
Spoiler alert. But there's so much that happens that I think you would have to have seen Clone Wars to kind of really appreciate it, if not understand it. It's a sequel. It is a sequel series. It is a continuation. It picks up where basically Clone Wars left off. So, I don't know, like, how does it fit into all this where it's like it is a true continuation, whereas the Clone Wars couldn't continue because the Clone Wars ended, but the Bad Batch kept on going. So that's where we're at right now. But I don't think it's hindered by that. I think it does enough on its own to kind of establish itself and establish these characters. And yes, there's many cameos, but there's also some great character moments. I think the best part about one of my favorite parts about the season finale was the fact that it stayed the course on keeping the focus on these characters versus having Ahsoka's here. No, that would distract from the story of the Bad Batch. I think that's a stronger way to do it. I think that's what was really great about this, how it ended and how it was structured overall.
Yeah, I was half expecting to at least see Rex show up in
Me too.
Finale. And I guess we're kind of getting into spoilers a little bit here by saying that he didn't show up. But I mean, come on, people. You've had over a week to watch this. If you haven't seen it yet, I don't know.
This is Sad Batch Friday. This is the first Friday we've had without an episode of the Bad Batch. You've had officially a week to watch the finale and more than that for all the other episodes. And they're on Disney Plus, people. Come on. Yeah, it's really Yeah, I think everyone's pretty much on board. There isn't like a ton. Like, there's one thing that happens in the season finale that like was I think genuinely surprising to me. They're like, okay, they didn't do that. They didn't go through that. But other than that, it wasn't about like, oh, a big spoiler. It's about like development of these characters, where they're going and where they end up.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, I don't think there were any big major plot twists. In fact, if anything, I would say there were probably a couple of plot holes, but we'll get to those when we discuss the actual finale in a second here. I'm going to go through the cameos that I found. I'm going to bring up my little index card here and go ahead and list like the cameos that I recognized or that I acknowledged during my rewatch. Obviously, in Aftermath, we're seeing the Bad Batch. They were assisting Depa Bilaba and Caleb Dune.
Right.
So we've got those cameos. Then we end up seeing Saul Guerrera. Then we get Cut LaQuaine. Then we've got Fennec Shan, Bib Fortuna, the Martez sisters. You mentioned Cad Bane a little while ago, who we haven't seen since February of 2012.
Crazy.
2012. We're in 2021, people. It's been 9 years since we saw Cad Bane on the scene, and we get him in this show. You get Senator Ornfried Ta, you get Cham and Hera Syndulla, you get AZ3, who helped Fives during the Lost Missions. Tarkin is back on the scene. Rex is back on the scene. Gregor's got an episode. Like, there's just so many people. Obviously, you've got Lama Su, Nala Se, people like that. I wouldn't necessarily call them cameos because they show up in so many episodes this season. But to have that much crossover and that much connectivity to the rest of the Star Wars universe, I think it sets a precedent for how seriously we're supposed to take these TV shows. You know, if Luke Skywalker showing up in the season finale of Mandalorian wasn't enough, like, this show kind of confirms to us that we need to examine the full scope of Star Wars and not just a certain couple of episodes that we just want to like pick and choose the importance of. Basically, every show and almost every episode of every show has some kind of significance attached to it, whether we want to acknowledge it or not. And I think by having all of these different characters intermingled and making appearances in the Bad Batch, it just reaffirms to us that this is a show worth paying attention to.
Right. And it kind of establishes, because like that was one of the questions that I had going into the Bad Batch. Like, okay, why these guys? Why are we focusing a show on all the characters, all the things you could do in the Star Wars universe? Why do you do a show about the Bad Batch? It's not that I didn't like the Bad Batch or didn't think they were interesting, but they weren't the most interesting characters that I could have thought. If I had my choice, I'd be like, whoa, well, get Ahsoka, get Rex. Let's see what what happens to them right after Order 66. What happens there? And now, you know, having the Bad Batch, I think it established itself as like, okay, this is a legitimate show, and also it's a worthy kind of addition to the saga, as you can say. So I think with the cameos and with and just with the destruction of Kamino near the end and all what happens there, it's like, wow, this is a major event in Star Wars Galaxy. This isn't just something personal journey for this. This is something real that's really a vital thing that's happening. And you mentioned it last time we spoke, you know, that scene of Kamino falling was incredible and incredibly sad. Mm-hmm. And, you know, and it kind of upped the stakes and really kind of put on brakes, like, wow, this is something I wasn't expecting. Yeah, we can talk about that. That was something that I definitely wanted to bring up. There are a few questions that we got from people in the Peacekeeper Hangout, the Intergalactic Peace Hangout group, that we're definitely going to touch on that, and we'll take any questions that you wanted to present to us in the chat on YouTube as well. But
there are a lot of people on Twitter that were talking about how the destruction of Kamino not only brought closure to the concept of the Clone Wars, but there are some people that actually felt a more, like a deeper emotional connection to the loss of Kamino than they did to the loss of certain characters. Like, Kamino's not even a character, it's just a location. But
Right.
but to witness Tapoka City and the cloning facility suffer the destruction that it did is just a very visual, very graphic representation that, hey, you remember that thing called the Clone War where you needed clones to fight in the war? Well, guess what? We're not making any clones anymore because the place where you make the clones is gone. And I just, honestly, I was thinking back to season 3, of the Clone Wars, when the Separatists tried to attack Kamino.
Yeah.
And the connections that it had to the Domino Squad, which is like my personal favorite storyline to follow in the Clone Wars. I loved following Fives and Echo and Heavy and all of those. Droid Bait and Cut Up, I think, were the other ones. And Fives and Echo were helping defend Tapoka City in season 3. And now the place where, they were fighting alongside the regs and helping the cadets, escape droids, none of that matters now. It's all gone. And the animation style in this sequence in particular was just extremely moving, because Kamino is known for its darkness and its storms and its depth while being extremely bright on the inside. We basically got a reversal of that, where
Oh, wow, I didn't even think about that.
yeah, because you've got the klaxons blaring and the lights turning red and stuff going on.
Yeah.
And apparently the Kaminoans had been controlling the atmosphere, causing it to rain and storm outside, because as soon as the facility was in the ocean, the freaking sun came out on Kamino.
Yeah, that doesn't happen very much.
You get a complete reversal of everything that you knew about this place, where it was bright on the inside and dark and stormy on the outside, and then the storm comes down to Tapoka City, destroys it, and the sun comes out. It's like a way of closing the story and letting you know there is no going back.
Yeah, it's like, it's such an emotional thing for the clones. Like, we spent, like, if you watch just the movies, it's like, oh, the clones are there, they're created there. What do the clones think of Kamino? Like, whatever. Like, we get in that first season of Clone Wars, we get rookies. We haven't even seen Kamino yet, but Rex has that great speech about, we're gonna defend Kamino. It's the closest thing we have to home. So we're gonna lay it down, and we're gonna do this. And we have Heavy sacrificing himself in those great moments. And that just sets it up for further. And then you get to that episode, and I think it's in season 3, where that they have to defend Kamino, and it's all on the line.
Yeah.
And it enhances their thing. And you have 99 story, all this kind of stuff, really emotional, heavy stuff that is important and establishes how much the clones care about Kamino. And it's funny, I think in the books, I think it's the Clone Commando books, it's completely opposite. Like, apparently they hated Kamino in Legends. So, it's one of those things. But I definitely like this version better. That, like, yes, they would have a connection to Kamino. That's all they have. That's only the connection. That's where they were born. So, and then having them watch, and then you have that one clone officer that shows up. And he's like, all the facilities have been destroyed, sir. And he's clearly not happy. He's like the one clone trooper left on the ship, and he's not happy to have to report to Rampart that they just destroyed his home. Sad stuff.
Yeah, it really is, because that eventually he's going to be decommissioned. Like, the foreshadowing. Right. The foreshadowing is so there, and even Hunter recognizes it in part 1 of the finale, He recognizes there's no more regs in the facility. He notices there's no more Kaminoans. And he basically looks at it and he's like, this facility's being decommissioned. And Crosshair's like, well, why do you care? You never cared about the regs before. Like, okay, I'm gonna turn this show PG-13 now, because in these final,
it's PG-13 segment, y'all. It happens once a week.
Well, I mean, if I could, I'd turn it rated R. But we've got our own R-rated show where I can just completely let loose. But in these last 2 episodes, I'm not gonna make any bones about it. Crosshair was being a little bitch. Just a petty, obnoxious, narcissistic, ridiculous, just a little bitch. And I'm like, I just want to smack you upside the head. Like, you never gave me a chance. Did I have a choice? Why do you care about the regs? You don't even care about your own brother. Like what the hell, man? Like, part of me wants to feel sympathy for you, because you did kind of go out on your own, but to a certain degree you kind of made that choice. I don't know, we'll get into that, but
I just going off of that, I like how they bring Crosshair in, and it makes you rethink, like, wait a minute, did they, what was his whole deal? And apparently you can watch the season and tell the moment or the episode where after he gets his chip taken out, because there's a shift in his personality. Because he's doing some really messed up stuff. He's crazy trying to kill them, in Battle Scars or the episode after that, Reunion. And he's full on. But you can kind of see where he's coming from, but you also have to go back and go the Bad Batch were running away from him most of the time. He was trying to kill them. And I mean, Hunter says it, that, we didn't have a choice. And Crusher says, well, I didn't have a choice, but I'm like, dude, you had your chip out. Apparently you did have a choice. So what the hell?
So let's talk about the chip. It was kind of a big point of discussion over the course of the whole season. You see several of the clones get them removed. You don't actually witness Crosshair's chip removal, though. And there's a lot of talk on Twitter especially, but other social media. I've seen it in certain Facebook groups too, where it looks like there was some sort of an explosion or a burn on that side of his head. It doesn't... Yeah. It doesn't look like the type of surgical removal that happened to the other clones. I don't really understand the phrasing of him saying that he had it removed a long time ago. I don't know if I'm completely convinced that he doesn't have it anymore.
Apparently. So going off of not canon material, but what the creators have said, I think Jennifer Corbett at one point in an interview said yeah, he had his chip taken out. That's confirmed, whatever. I don't know. I agree with you that seems there is room, because does he know he had his chip taken out? Was he told it was taken out and maybe it wasn't? I think thematically they're trying to tell us, and I actually talked about this with our good buddy Jeff over on Hype Function a few days ago. You should definitely check that out. But I kind of went into okay, thematically they're trying to tell us that his chip is taken out. And I think to go say, okay, he doesn't have a choice, he doesn't have a choice. Oh, he does have a choice. He did choose this, and then to maybe next season flip it around again and going oh wait, no, he did have his chip all along. That's a bit of you're playing with our emotions here. I don't really like that. I like the idea, and people were talking about it for months now since series started, of what if they take his chip out and he makes the choice to join the Empire. I always like that idea. I think they made the most interesting option out of this. The door could be still open for him to have his chip, but I think it would take away from the fact that he has made his choice and he is acting on his own free will. And that is something that's going to come into play later, because, he's going to get screwed over by the Empire. They don't They tried to kill him. They freaking blew up the city while he was in it. They don't care about him.
He's already been screwed over by them, and that's part of what makes this season finale feel so convoluted to me. And maybe that's not the right word, because I enjoyed it. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed it. The visual, the fight scenes, the tugging of the emotional heartstrings, the thematic closure that you get to signify the complete and utter end of the Clone Wars. Like, all of that gets wrapped up into like 45-50 minutes of epicness. But at the same time, the scene in the simulator where they take the lift up and they meet Crosshair and Hunter, and he says, I'm gonna do for you what you never did for me. I'm gonna give you something that you never gave me, which is a choice. Like, yeah, that's definitely a far cry from the Crosshair that was like shooting at them in episode 8 reunion.
Right.
Like, I can acknowledge that. But this was what his big plan was. Like, he's been planning and scheming about how to locate and track down and do something to the Bad Batch, and then he finally has his moment of truth, and rather than get revenge on the brothers that abandoned him, he's like, join the Empire, you're meant for a greater purpose. And I'm like, really? like after all of this, you're the one that's gonna be like compassionate and caring and try and like forgive and forget? Like, I don't see him being any of those things. I see him as a petty manipulative bitch. And so I don't see where this side of his character is coming from. It didn't really make a whole lot of sense for him to be like, I'm going to hunt you down. I'm going to hunt you down. And then even before the finale, you've got Hunter in the holding cell, and he's like, I was hoping for the whole squad, but you'll do. Like, it all just very much sounds like he's still after revenge. And then in the middle of nowhere, it's like, join me. And then you go to the final episode, they've decided on no, and it's like he goes back to being a petty, brooding, passive-aggressive little bitch again, being like, I've made my choice. I'm not coming on the shuttle with you. I'd rather drown on this platform. Like, Crosshair's story makes very little sense to me. Please help me sort this out, because he's hunting them down, gives them a choice. Passive-aggressive, bitchy little brother. What is his character? What is his motive? What is he after? How does he respond to the way that the Empire treated him by leaving him behind like this? Is he going to be just blindly loyal to them the way he wasn't blindly loyal to his brothers? None of his persona seems to add up. And maybe that's intentional, but to me, it's just frustrating.
Well, a lot of it rides on not just our perception, but the character's perception of him and his motivations. He starts out, he has his chip, it's working halfway, and they enhance it to where he's fully loyal, he's fully in on the Empire. But before that, he's like, whatever. Like, he says, okay, we need to follow orders and stuff like this, but like, he doesn't necessarily feel like a true believer in the Empire. I don't know. But then he gets his chip enhanced and he's full blown on in the Empire, Death Trooper, whatever you want to call him. And then you go a long time and Omega keeps coming back to the idea that it's not his choice. He's not in control, just like all the other clones.
Well, and we get a glimpse of that with the way that Wrecker behaves when his
right.
chip is activated. Like, we see what happens to a Bad Batch clone when the chip is active and when they're in full rampage mode. And so, like, we get a nice little comparison contrast there, but once Wrecker is, like, fixed or whatever, I feel like I'm talking about neutering a clone when I say that, but once he's been fixed, he kind of goes back to his old ways. But this doesn't even strike me as Crosshair reverting back to just following orders. It just strikes me as he's got an identity crisis.
Well, yeah, definitely. I think that's a huge thing with him, because like he goes through all this and is just absolutely ruthless. Goes to to Onderon and wipes out a bunch of rebels. Like he does some horrible things, but then he tries to kill the Bad Batch multiple times, and then we have the whole thing with, okay, now he doesn't have his chip. Now he's trying to, like, he realizes that, like, he's got himself back, but at the same time, he's still loyal to the Empire. He's still in on this thing. He's like, despite being mind controlled, I'm still along with what I was being mind controlled with. And then he's like, okay, I'm going to be the bigger man. I'm going to do what they didn't do for me, which is I'm going to give them a choice because they didn't give me a choice, even though all the times that they could have given me a choice, I was trying to murder them brutally.
Yeah, I feel like we basically just said the same thing in different ways. Like, his personality is all over the place. Like,
I definitely, it's funny. I have a more positive outlook on it. I'm coming at this like, I think it's interesting that, like, they did this and they ended it the way they did, and he's like, the chip isn't in his head anymore, and the where it ends. I get where you're saying, though, in the fact that I kind of even agree with you that, like, it is a bit like, okay, what is going on? What is happening here? Because it is a bit kind of up and down. And even just, like, in general, how they've treated the chips. Like, the chips being a thing was a big thing in the first part of the season. Then we have other clones show up. We have Gregor. What happened with his chip? Did he execute Order 66? What about Hauser? What about all these other clones? They don't address it. They don't talk about, okay, what's the deal with their chips? I thought that would be a bigger plot point of, we need to get these clones, but they're mind controlled. We have to rescue them and get the chip out. That hasn't been a thing in this season. And it seems to be a plot point that's been completely dropped. And I was kind of disappointed with that.
I think the plot point was kind of a means to an end, though, specifically honing in on the Jedi Order. Once the Jedi Order become basically a non-factor in the storyline, that's kind of when the whole chip conversation gets dropped. Because, like, Rex, after the loss of Depa Billaba and the escape of Caleb Doom, once you have Rex show up on the scene, Rex is connected to Ahsoka. We all know that from the final season of the Clone Wars. Once Rex kind of leaves the scene in the first third of the season, I believe, what is it, Decommissioned?
It's Rex is in Battle Scars, and then the next episode is Reunion, where Crosshair shows up.
So Rex is in episode 7, and then Crosshair shows up in episode 8. Once Rex leaves in episode 7, I feel like that's kind of when the chip conversation is done. And so, like, there's no more connection to Force sensitives. There's no more connection to the Jedi Order. Like, those chips were meant to bring about the downfall of the Jedi. The Jedi have fallen. Let's shift gears. That's kind of how I saw it, I guess.
But see, I get your point. I think that's probably where the writers were coming from. My counterpoint to that is Wrecker going bad had nothing to do with the Jedi. It was about him being him saying, good soldiers follow orders, doing his whole thing about, you're in violation of Order 66. You need to come with me. You're going to die, whatever. Doing all this. There wasn't a Jedi involved. If, like, it would have been different if, like, Ahsoka was there. And, like, Ahsoka was with Rex, and then his chip activates. He's like, oh, I got to kill Ahsoka. There's a Jedi. I got to kill her. And do all that. There wasn't that. And after the premiere, there was no Jedi. And then you have, even in Cut and Run, you have all the clones out there, and they seem to be, like, under a spell. They're mind controlled. They're, like, doing all this Empire stuff, and they're not of their own mind. It has nothing to do with Jedi. It's more like being, but, like, does it wear off? Whatever. They never really explain that or address that to me.
So here's my counterpoint.
I love it.
The theory among certain message boards is perhaps Omega has a little higher midichlorian count than we are led to believe.
I still like that theory. I still am of the mind that, see, here's the thing. And this is another thing they didn't come back to in season 1. Remember, First episode, end of Aftermath. They're trying to leave Kamino, and Crosshair is about to kill them. But then, out of nowhere, Omega grabs a blaster and she blasts Crosshair's sniper out of his hands. Bullseyes him. They get in the ship. How'd you do that? I've never fired a blaster before. What? Omega's never fired a blaster before, and she nailed him. Like, she was a better shot than Crosshair. And there was other things where she was copying things, and it was almost like this mimicking, almost like this force thing where she had this special power to like just watch someone do something and then do it. They never came back to that. All they do, the whole revelation was, okay, she's a clone. She's a pure clone of Jango. Just happens to be female. They never come back to the whole idea of what makes her special. I don't think being a girl necessarily makes her special.
No.
So what is her special power? They keep asking that. They keep Hunter's going on and on about it with Cut. What makes her special? They don't answer that question.
But Omega was the first one to identify Sid from the group of strangers, too.
Another thing, there's so many different instances where she's like, there's something about this kid.
And a tactical genius, won several consecutive games of Dejarik. I feel like the reason she is so good at that isn't because she's a tactician. It's because she anticipates moves before they happen. Who else was able to see things before they happen? I believe that was a direct quote from one Qui-Gon Jinn observing Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah, exactly.
So, okay, we've got like several questions in the chat that I think need clearing up. There's some people that are fairly new to Star Wars in general.
Right.
And so we're going to address a couple of those questions, and then American Turkey Burger asked us to explain things to us in detail. So we're gonna have to circle back just a little bit here. But DMT Infinity says, I'm very, very new to Star Wars, but is Boba Fett or Jango Fett or however they're spelled, are they clones, or do they just wear clone trooper armor? Like, is it a manipulation tactic since they're assassins, or is it just an aesthetic choice? George, a.k.a. Chosen Nightwolf, replies, Boba is an unaltered clone of Jango, which we get explained to us in Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, who was the original template for the clone army in the Clone Wars. DMT says, oh, spoiled. Well, I asked for it. But damn, I always assumed Jango Fett was his son or something. And then American Turkey Burger is saying, please explain it in detail to us how she wasn't a Jedi child. Okay. DMT, to answer your question first, I would just recommend, if you haven't seen Episode 2, Attack of the Clones yet, I would recommend it, because you actually see a young Boba Fett hanging out with Jango Fett, so you see that like Jango treats him like a son, even though there wasn't a woman involved. It's just a copy and paste of Jango younger and gave him a different name. So Boba is Jango's son, more or less, even though it's just like a genetic duplicate. And that's basically all the clones are, too. Every clone trooper you see in the Clone Wars TV show that you see in episodes 2 and 3, all of those clone troopers are copy and paste of Jango Fett. He is the clone template. Right. But the difference with the clone troopers, and Ben, you can correct me on this if I'm wrong, but I feel like this is one area I do know.
You're right.
They used like a growth acceleration hormone in order to get the clones to age a little bit faster. So instead of waiting 18 years for a fully grown, fully developed clone, you could get them into the adult stage by age 9. And so that's kind of where the clone trooper army came from, was just a very acceleratedly made duplicate of the original guy, Jango Fett. Even though he is now deceased, they still have the DNA. The problem is that DNA has been deteriorating. When you take samples like that, eventually the DNA strands come up.
Copy of a copy of a copy of a copy.
It becomes the copy of the copy of the copy. And that's why Omega is so important, because she is another genetic duplication of Jango Fett, just in the form of a female.
Essentially the sister of Boba Fett.
The sister, more or less. But what makes her important is that she has the purest DNA of any last remaining member of the Fett clan. And so that's, in my opinion, why the Prime Minister was so obsessed with keeping her alive, was because he wanted that DNA template so that he could keep making more clones. But my counter theory to that would be, since she was made in the same genetics lab as Experimental Unit 99, she had to have been experimented on herself. The cloning facility had Jedi that came through the facility on a regular basis, sometimes as mentors, sometimes as inspectors, sometimes overseers, like Shaak Ti was in the Clone Wars. The Kaminoans had access to Jedi DNA. And I can't help but wonder if Omega was another experimental clone that had an infusion of midichlorian cells to try and make her a little bit force sensitive.
Yeah, that sounds like, and that sounds like something that they could reveal in a future season. That, like, I feel like they've left that question open and hanging for a reason,
which is why season 2 is so important.
Right. So that's the whole thing with, like, and the fact that the clone army, like, all that stuff is gone now. Like,
right.
if they want to, and who knows, like, I'm curious, like, what was what was Lama Su's plan there? What were they trying to do? Were they trying to create another clone army? Because again, more exposition that isn't even actually in the movie a lot of times, but in Attack of the Clones, but prior to Attack of the Clones, during the Phantom Menace era, Sifo Dyas has a vision, does his whole thing, goes off to Kamino and tells them, hey, there's a war coming, whatever. And so the clones that are created, supposedly even including the Bad Batch, are created 10 years prior to that. So it takes about 10 years, about half the time of a normal person, like you're saying, to grow these clones up to normal size. And they even say that in this last episode that Omega is technically older than the Bad Batch. They're probably about 8, 9, maybe 10 years old. She's 12, 13, probably at most. She remembers them when they were created, but and she is technically, like, in mental wise, she is a lot younger. She lived a very sheltered life on Kamino and was raised like basically a normal human, versus the Bad Batch guys, which were raised up real fast, trained, turned into warriors, sent on the battlefield. Things that
Ben.
Oh, I apologize about that. I literally accidentally unplugged my computer.
Oh,
I unplugged my internet. Oopsie.
Your hands were just flapping. You got really excited over everything, and just whoop, there goes the power.
Yeah. Oopsie. Yeah, I won't do that again.
Okay, so DMT Infinity is just, like, completely mind blown in the chat right now.
Yes.
Like at one point, that is like, what the hell? I can't wait to get to the Clone Wars. This sounds absolutely amazing. And so that's why this chick is so special. Jesus Christ, what an amazing plot. The entire Star Wars thing is just one mind-blowing concept after another. Yes! We've converted another one to the religion of Star Wars. This episode is a success now because we converted DMT Infinity to Star Wars. But here's the really interesting thing. Our first view of Kamino is in Episode 2, Attack of the Clones.
Right.
And our last view of it, essentially, is going to be here in this Season 1 finale. I kind of want to find all known appearances of Kamino from Episode 2 through the Clone Wars TV series to the end of Season 1 of The Bad Batch, and just watch them all in sequence, back to back to back, in order to gain, like, a deeper appreciation for the planet, for the facility, just for everything that has to do with Kamino. Because I'm kind of in that boat that we were talking about earlier about experiencing a loss of a character, more or less. Like, seeing the defense of Kamino on the Rishi Moon, seeing the defense of it in Season 3, watching different clones, grow and mature in this facility on this planet. It's just it's a fascinating concept.
Yeah, Yeah, it is. I love that we're getting to explore this. I love that we're getting this very clone centric story. And it's funny that the Bad Batch seems to be even more clone focused than the Clone Wars was. And that's saying something because Clone Wars was all about the clones a lot of times. And it's just great that we're getting this thing. And we go into the future. We go into season 2. I don't want to talk too much about season 2 because there's so much to talk about in season 1, but that's freaking Mount Tantiss at the end, guys.
Yeah.
And we're going into more clone territory, which probably connects to Thrawn and connects to the Mandalorian because there's that one person that has the patch on their arm. And it looks exactly like what Dr. Pershing is wearing in The Mandalorian. And that probably connects to the Rise of Skywalker and Palpatine. There's a lot of happening, all right? This DMT Affinity has no idea what he's getting himself into. The mythology of cloning is expanding at a alarming rate right before our eyes right now.
Yeah, it is. And we'll get to Tantiss and the Thrawn connectivity towards the tail end of the program. Our host, Sean, actually had to step away for a little bit, but he actually asked to be a part of that conversation.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll zip it on that for now. We'll say that for later.
Well, we'll just hit the pause button. Just be like, boop. We'll come back. We'll circle back to that in just a little bit. Because, well, it's even listed in the description of the show. You know,
it's right there.
It says Mount Tantiss and Thrawn. Like that is going to be.
I thought it was fair game, like Carly.
It is. Just whenever Sean,
it's right there because Sean is very excited to talk about it. He put it right there.
Exactly. Sean made the graphic, and Sean wants to talk about those things, so that's why it was put in the lower third. But yeah, we are totally talking about Mount Tantiss in there because there's definitely a lot to explore in that as well. So there was another question from American Turkey Burger, and we've actually got questions in the Intergalactic Peace Hangout.
Yep.
You know, what topics do you want us to talk about? We'll talk about those in just a second. But there was one more question from American Turkey Burgers, said something to the effect of, what if she started her own clan? Could you explain her past a little more just so we understand her perspective? Ben, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think part of the reason why some of her backstory is so vague is so that we can unfurl more in season 2. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much quote unquote backstory she has, other than understanding where she came from, who is she, what is she made from, like what was her purpose, like why was she made in the first place, like kind of her existence in Nala Se is still around to kind of answer those questions maybe, and Omega may know some of those answers herself. But her backstory basically is she just lived on Kamino and literally never left until the Bad Batch took her away from there.
Mm-hmm.
So that was interesting. But I think season 2 could be more exposition heavy in regards to explaining what, I've seen a lot of shows where, season 2, season 3, they get into the meat and potatoes of the story and figuring out who your characters are. And so I'm very, 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 very curious to see where this goes in season 2 and getting more of all these characters.
Well, I mean, we didn't really find out what we were supposed to find out about a certain mysterious girl until 2 movies after somebody asked the question, so who's the girl?
Right.
So,
right.
I mean,
and then sometimes we got some answers we didn't want. Just gonna say that. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah, but the point is, Star Wars has a tendency to take its time as far as exposition is concerned.
As an audience, we are very impatient. We are very we want all the answers right now, and that
it took us
always work.
A half before we figured out what Baby Yoda's name was. You know, we didn't find that out. There wasn't some ID tag wrapped around the kid's neck that we learned the name by episode 2 or something. You know, it took time. It takes time to expand upon these characters, and I think they left Omega's character intentionally vague enough that you see some things about her that could make you speculate, but there's also a lot of other things that we just straight up don't know yet, and we're probably going to find out more as time goes on. And so I'm glad that they didn't make everything 100% exposed, if you will. Yeah, I make it sound like they're undressing or something, but I'm glad that not everything was, storytelling nude for us. Like, give us a exposition striptease or something. Let's take our time with this and
Make
just
it weird.
I don't know. I had a metaphor and then I just started rolling with it, and it got as I kept going.
Exposition.
Strip tease. Oh, look, this episode where she's playing Dejarik, I'm taking off my glove. There you go, audience. Like, I don't know, but I'm okay. Yes, okay. Stare at me. Fine. Whatever. What are you gonna do about it? I think there is some beauty in the ambiguity because that gives us an opportunity to learn more and to watch more. These 16 episodes were awesome.
Oh yeah.
And there's going to be plenty more. So before we get to the actual questions, want to give a special shout out to Joey Mays and Jesse Bennett for their support of the show. Both of those guys are at the shout out friend tier or above on our Patreon page at patreon.com/IPC Podcast. If you want to get a shout out on the show, that's where to find it. If you want exclusive access to our show notes and some behind the scenes stuff that we do in between episodes, there's a special Facebook group for that that's exclusive to patrons. We got all kinds of really great benefits, including top billing during our top 5 discussions, opportunities to potentially join us on this show or on the R-rated program that we do once a month. There's some really, really great stuff that you can do there. So, just check that out at patreon.com/IPC Podcast. And we actually do have an advertising segment, and our friend Jesse actually is paying for an advertisement right now because he's got his own show that he's trying to get up and running, which is really awesome. I listened to the first episode called of Question Possible Answer, where he and his co-host just bring up some speculations on different possible outcomes of movies and franchises if things had gone a certain way. So one of his main questions was, what if Watto had accepted Republic credits? How would Star Wars have played out if Qui-Gon's like, I have 20,000 Republic Dietaries. Okay, deal. And they're just on their merry way. And it's like, bye, Anakin. Have fun being a slave.
Basically, if you wanted that Star Wars What If series that everyone's talking about now, this is it. This is as close as you're going to get to it.
So the description is as follows. Come join us at Question Possible Answers. We discuss some of our favorite movies with a twist. Ignoring canon, every question is on the table unless the answer is given in the series. We also introduce our own fun theories and possibilities. Check us out on Facebook and Instagram at question/possible answer on Facebook and question_possible_answer on Insta. Now available on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and other podcast services. I have insider information that a couple of their next episodes are going to involve the Indiana Jones series and the Jurassic Park series.
Yeah, I'm game.
I'm getting really, really excited about those. Hope you guys are now too. So
that's cool. That's really cool.
Let's delve into our listener feedback.
Yeah, we got quite a bit, don't we?
We do. Joel has requested that we talk about Mount Tantiss and the Thrawn loose adaptation. We will get to that when Sean shows up. Steven sent us a very sarcastic topic, TBBQ Watch.
The Bad Batch Q Watch. The Bad Batch Barbecue Watch.
Bad Batch BQ Watch. I don't know.
I don't know what you're implying there, Shinder, and I'm afraid to ask.
I do have a very interesting barbecue watch segment for tonight. If you don't have anything thought up, I've actually got something.
I don't believe I do.
I could put it in the show notes, though, because somebody didn't give me editor access to the notes before we went.
Just did. I think you clicked the wrong link. I'm just saying.
I clicked the link that you sent me. The other link went to this website that started with a P and ended with a B. Maybe that's where I've been getting all of these weird thoughts from.
You didn't get that link from me. I'm just saying. That's on you.
Jesse, one of our patrons, asks, at what point did Crosshair get his chip taken out, and why did the Empire allow him to remove it? Ben, you seem to have more thoughts on this than I do, because my thought is it's not gone yet. But why do you think the Empire was okay with the prospect even of a clone that would have been subject to mind control no longer being under said power?
Well, yeah, it's like, okay, first of all, how did he know it was there? How did he know the chip was there? Seems like the guy, all these guys that have the chip in their head are pretty oblivious to it and are under mind control or whatever, and he is like super enhanced. How did he know about it? Who helped him get it out? Did he get it out himself? If so, did he do it without the Empire's permission? How did he go about doing that? I would not think the Empire would want you to do that. You know,
Right.
it was this whole thing of like, they don't want to take a chance on what if he turned against them. They want to keep him on their side, keeping that chip in his head, make sure that he's this most deadliest, the most ruthless Imperial agent that they have. So that's a great question. I don't really have an answer to it. Like, obviously, you have what happens to him after in the episode Reunion, where he gets his face all burned and stuff like that. Like, that's a obvious place to point of like, okay, maybe he had his chip out taken out there. Maybe it was damaged. Maybe they, because Crosshair says, I had it taken out. Well, that can be interpreted a lot of ways. Maybe it was damaged and it was going to make him do some crazy stuff, and they just took it out for him, maybe. And then he woke up and going, I still like you guys. And he just kept on going. I don't know. It's like Zach is kind of like opened up to me. It is kind of convoluted. I hope we get some more clearance in next season. Like, okay, what exactly is going on here? I can buy that Crosshair being, he was a dick all along. I'm just going to say it. All right. He was kind of an asshole the whole time. So
even in the story arc from the Clone Wars, he was kind of aloof and dicky to people like Rex. So
exactly. So it's not out of the realm of possibilities that he would just join the Empire. But how did he arrive at that conclusion? And how did he get there? And how did he get his chip out? That's, how do we get those answers?
My bigger question now is, how does he feel about the Empire now that he's been abandoned by them on Kamino? Like, I think at this point, he feels like he's in too deep to be able to go back now. Like, it's almost like a prodigal son type of story where it's like, I can't do this now. I have to stay with the pigs in the sty, because if I go home, I'm not going to be accepted by my family.
It really seems like he's bending over backwards to like justify their actions, because the Hunter says that, like, they left us here to die. What are you talking about? And he's like, the Empire did what needed to be done. Like, what does that even mean? They didn't have to destroy the place, like, and they certainly didn't have to do it while you were in it. They don't care about you, dude. They don't.
So what happens to him now? I think that's probably one of my favorite parts of this season finale, is that he chose not to return to his brothers at the end of the season. There wasn't like a season-long redemption arc type of thing. Because if they do, then that would indicate to me that they don't want to do a season 2. That, like, oh, they all lived happily ever after and sang Kumbaya on Coruscant. Like, I don't see that happening. I see it being more of an antagonistic role going on now. But to what extent and to what degree? Because he's still pretty pissed at his brothers, but if I were him, I'd be pretty pissed at the Empire, too, for leaving me stranded out here. So, like, is he going to start having moments of clarity when he finally does make it back to the Empire, and he recognizes that, like, his position isn't as secure as he thought it was? Or is he going to start, like, having second thoughts about stopping his brothers and, like, actually letting them accomplish some of the missions that they're going on or something like that? Like, I don't think he's going to necessarily join them, but I can't help but wonder if he's going to, like, be all petty and passive aggressive against the Empire by allowing the Bad Batch to successfully complete their missions in season 2.
Here's what I'm expecting, and I'm going to make a prediction at the end of this.
Okay.
I think that his season 2 arc will be him slowly realizing that the Empire, like not realizing it, but accepting the fact that the Empire cares nothing about him and will throw him away at first, chance they get. And him kind of waking up, and I think maybe by that point, maybe he'll have some remorse for what he does. I don't know if he'll go back with a bad batch, but definitely doesn't want to stay with the Empire. I think Crosshair is going to be the reason that we don't see Admiral Rampart in the original trilogy. I think Crosshair is going to cross him off before this is over.
And when he does that, he becomes just as much of a rogue as his brothers were, but he's got too much pride to join up with them. I could see him joining a group that is like a third party type of thing.
Crimson Dawn, brah?
Aha! The Crimson Dawn is a very legit possibility. We saw the Pikes in this season. I think we could see him just as a bounty hunter. I think he would kick ass as a bounty hunter. And
really great.
Okay, here's another train of thought. Fennec Shand is supposedly a sharpshooter by the time we get to Mandalorian.
Right.
She's a pretty decent shot, but we also saw her being really manipulative and doing a lot of hand-to-hand combat in this season. Not as much sharpshooting as I was expecting. What if she gets sharpshooting lessons from Crosshair?
Crosshair and Fennec team up. How awesome would that be?
I
didn't even think about that, but that's amazing. I love that.
Like both of their sets of sarcasm and wit seem like they are just lined up perfectly for a collaboration. But that may be like season 3 speculation at this point. I think your speculation about Rampart is spot on, though. I think there's a reason we don't see him in the original trilogy, and we will get that reason possibly as soon as season 2. So yeah. That's a good one. Joey's got a question about our expectations for season 2 and beyond. Probably need to save that for the end of the show when we do our final thoughts on our planet scores. So we'll circle back to that question, Joey. Why do I keep saying Jesse? Because we just did Jesse's question. It's Jesse and Joey, and I'm just meshing Jessoe. That's their name now. Matthias had a few really good.
Yeah.
My goodness! Wow, two comments with about 5 questions total. Goodness. Your feelings about how the show progressed, if you think it progressed well, or is the batch still a bit too stereotypical and two-dimensional? I think characters like Hunter got a lot more depth than some other characters did. I feel like that was intentional, though. I don't feel like every single clone in the batch was supposed to have his day. So, maybe they'll do that in season 2, but I think the focus was supposed to be on Hunter and Omega, and they succeeded at doing that. So that's my opinion.
I think Hunter, Wrecker, those two got the most development. Tech a little bit. He went from I thought it was obvious to like, how should I know about this? It was just a little tiny bit. And then Echo was just in the background the entire time. And Crosshair, we've already talked about Crosshair at length. He's all over the place. But I'm looking forward to season 2 because I hope that we get more into, what I'm hoping for. I just thought about this today. The fact that AZ is with them now. AZ spends a lot of time with Fives.
Yeah.
And maybe he got his memory wiped. Maybe he didn't. Maybe there's still some leftover holographic recordings of Fives, or just more information on what happened to Fives. And maybe that can be a catalyst for Echo getting some more development next season. Him kind of finding out what happened to Fives and all that, and seeing his legacy kind of play out, and seeing what Echo wants to do with that.
Because that is one of Matthias's next question is, is there somebody that needed more screen time like Echo? I think if there is some sort of connection to Fives and the Domino Squad in general, right, I'll definitely be happy with that. Like I said earlier, the Domino Squad was probably my favorite storyline to follow. The Citadel arc, I don't know if you remember this, but back when the Citadel arc happened, like I changed my Facebook profile picture to be like a thoughts and prayers for Echo type of picture. Like
That was tough, man.
it was the sideways turn, smoking helmet, and like I was like legit depressed over the loss of Echo back in that day. And so when we had the episodes of the rescue on Skako Minor, I was like, what? Like it was like such a huge relief to me to know that the Domino Squad survived. And so if there is something more we can do for Echo, I am all for it because I love the Domino Squad. So
yeah, I love that one little moment we got this season of them debating about going to get Gregor, and Echo was like, you did the same thing for me. Like you literally went in there guns a-blazing without any information to rescue me, and it worked. Like this is why you need to do this now, and like calling us around, and it worked for them too. And that's the thing. Not the same way, but it did work out overall. And Echo was right.
Mm-hmm. And we got to see Clone Commandos for the first time.
Clone Commandos, yeah. Again, it had been a long time since we've seen them in animation, and even longer since we've seen him in video games, but so good to see Gregor again and all the Clone Commandos.
I mean, outside of Gregor, had we really seen any Clone Commandos in any of the previous series?
There is one scene in season 3. It's Witches of the Mist. It's the final of the Night Sisters arc, if you remember. Savage Opress, Ventress, all that big saga, the start of that one. Mm-hmm. And there's after Savage goes to Devron and wipes out a bunch of Jedi and clones, there is a scene immediately after that in the next episode where Delta Squad shows up on Coruscant. And anybody that well, just look up Delta Squad Clone Wars, it'll show up on your YouTube feed. And they show up, and it's like their one little cameo, the one cameo from Delta Squad from the Republic Commando games, and they show up. And other than that, we don't have any. The only other one is, of course, Gregor. But like this is the most Clone Commandos I think we've ever seen.
Oh yeah,
in one place. Like there's so many of them. There was even more in the season finale. It was more, hanging around at that base, Mount Tantiss or whatever it is, than any place.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But I mean the other base that they were on, where they were training the TK troopers.
Right.
Was it Daro? Was that the
Daro?
planet?
Yeah.
So the training facility on Daro reminded me a lot of the Death Star.
Oh, yeah. It even had the Death Star music.
It had Death Star music. It had like the little mouse droids running around. It had those very deep and pristine hallways like you get on the Death Star in A New Hope. There were just a lot of things that reminded me of it, and it helped me recognize that it's just a Imperial design. It's not just the Death Star that looks like this. This is how it looks across the board. And I think it was that episode in particular that kind of helped me forget that I was watching an animated show for a while, because the dense forests and the mountain ridge lines and everybody in their trooper armors and stuff, for a minute it looked like live action. It straight up did. Some of the fight scenes, some of the chase scenes, some of the jumping aboard the shuttle and stuff like that, trying to escape from the base, all of that just had a very deep, rich visual component to it that made me think that I wasn't watching a cartoon. And there's not very many scenes in this show that do that, but that whole episode practically did that for me, and I had a blast just getting lost in the Star Wars universe for a little bit there. It was awesome.
Yeah, War Mantles, one of my favorite episodes of the entire season. Really great episode, not just because of Gregor, but because like the whole TK troopers and all the great music and the sound effects, they went all out, and like this is the Empire. This is the Empire coming of age and becoming a thing, and like the first real evidence of like, wow, the Republic is like, this is not going away. This is the start of something.
Yeah, War Mantle is probably like a top 3 episode for me. We'll get to favorite episodes in just a second. If we have to kill time for Sage, we can do favorite episodes.
We got plenty to talk about.
while we're waiting for Sean to come back. Another question from Matthias. If Omega has powers outside of being a female clone, what will it be? Force or something else like coping? I love Force powers, but maybe it's time for something different.
I think he means copying others.
Copying? Okay.
Copy.
It may have been a spelling thing.
Yeah.
I don't believe it would be copying. Just based on her tactical skills in at the Dejarik table. I'm still leaning towards just an increased midi-chlorian count. I don't think she's completely Jedi or completely Force sensitive, but I think if you have a slightly higher midi-chlorian count, it just makes you a little more in tune with the world around you. And so I think my gut tells me just higher midi-chlorian count.
Well, I think the lore, there's stuff in The Force Unleashed 2 that is not canon anymore that suggests, and they straight up say in that game that you can't clone Jedi, that it's not possible and all this kind of stuff. And of course the game goes on to prove that you can do it. It's just a bit complicated.
Well, I mean, episode 9 goes on to prove, but I'm getting ahead of myself.
But it would, yeah. Oh yeah, exactly. But like, it goes on, like, it seems like if you could just easily clone a Jedi, like they would have done it for the clone army. Like they would have cloned Sifo Dyas or whatever. Like, why not have a bunch of thousands of millions of Jedi clones? Like, why not do that? I think it was more complex. And a lot of people are already like pointing to like, okay, Omega's Force sensitive, and that means she's connected to Palpatine and all this kind of stuff. I don't think we're getting Palpatine in this show. I don't think this show is about how Palpatine returned eventually 50 years in the future. But I think is on the road to that. I think she's going to be somewhat Force sensitive. It will be a step in that direction of, okay, we can clone Force sensitive people. This is how we're going to do it. And so that sets the stage for everything Thrawn's doing, everything Moff Gideon's doing, and then eventually what Palpatine could pick up on and go, I'm back, baby.
Yep, I would tend to agree. So I think Omega's laying the foundation for what we're going to end up seeing more of in shows like Mando and Ahsoka and stuff that basically preludes episode 9. And like you said earlier, this is setting a very large precedent to change our perception of cloning technology as we know it in the Star Wars universe. And Omega could be like the building block that's leading up to all the other things. And maybe this is the thing that's kind of disappointing me a little bit, because if we'd gotten some of these preludes and some of these things before episode 9, I think I might have enjoyed it a little bit more. Like, that's not to say that I didn't enjoy episode 9. Like, obviously, if you go back and listen to Skywalker Pod, like, I had like a few very loud defenses of that movie. I probably wouldn't be as loud about it now, but I did enjoy it. But knowing what I know now, I think would help me enjoy it even more than I did before. And so I guess I'm a little sad that the timeline is what it is, because if we'd gotten some of this stuff like Omega and some of the stuff from what they do with the child, what they do with Grogu in Mando, if we'd gotten a little bit more of that before Rise of Skywalker, I would have been like, oh, they're building up to this. Look what they're doing. Like,
exactly.
I probably would have been a little more excited. I'm still excited to see where it goes, and maybe I can watch it through the eyes of my girlfriend or something, possibly. Like, she and I just finished the original trilogy together, and we're going through like Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith next. So like, we're kind of working our way up through the rest of the franchise very slowly, very methodically, but still trying to go through it. And hopefully we can do some intermingled Clone Wars and Bad Batch and things like that to kind of get us to that point. Next question, unless you had more thoughts on this one.
No. I was looking at the many more questions that my ties. All great questions.
They are.
But he has plenty.
Favorite funny moment. I don't know if I watched this show for the comedy. I'm sure there were some funny moments. Probably some stuff that happened in Cut and Run probably made me laugh the most because of the
Right.
kids and just the wacky, adventurous nature of it. But I don't know if I really laughed at this show all that much. Maybe the episode where they're trying to rescue Moochie. What was that? Episode 5, Rampage.
Rampage.
The
Moochie.
the episode where they're trying to rescue Moochie. There were lots of laughs in that one, but other than that,
I love the tech-based comedy. I crack myself up. Tech, I loved. I mentioned this earlier. Tech in the first episode, I think he's like, he like deduces that Tarkin is talking about the Bad Batch, but he doesn't include Echo, or that Lama Su is talking about the Bad Batch, and that he deduces that Omega is the 5th member, I think, or 5th or 6th, and that Echo is a reg. He wasn't that. And they're like, well, why didn't you mention this earlier? And he's like, I thought it was obvious. And then couple that with later in the show, literally the second to last episode. I'm sorry. Well, go ahead. What do you guys say? What do you guys say?
I thought you were gonna reference the Echo joke with the Martez sisters.
Oh no. Okay, that is the best one. That is the best one. I'm sorry, I forgot all about that. It is the best one. That is one of the greatest jokes ever. Ever.
Is there an Echo?
Is there an Echo in here? I'm Echo. What?
I'm Echo.
Look at each other like, what?
And that goes all the way back to the Clone Wars, because he would like repeat the regulations and the orders, and they're like, "Stop echoing orders!" Like that's like,
don't call me Echo. Stop repeating every order.
And then they're like, "Is there an Echo in here?" I'm Echo.
Oh my gosh.
But
please,
getting
back to the Tech real quick. Tech in the second to last episode, they show up in the thing, and Omega starts explaining like, "Oh, this is where you're created," and Wrecker's like, "Whoa, what is this? Was this possible?" And Tech is like, "How should I know? How could I possibly know that?" And it's just like the total turnaround of like him acting all smarty pants, and then like, why do you think I have all the answers? I only act like I know what I'm doing.
Well, but I think that's an interesting point to Tech's character, is for much of the show, and even going back to the Bad Batch arc, he's very knowledgeable about a lot of things and very able to deduce certain things just based on the process of elimination. But the way things are going right now for them, as far as Hunter's capture and Omega's backstory, what could end up happening next, like there's a lot of uncertainty now that the war is over, and Tech, much like everyone else, is kind of out of his element. And so to see him go from being somebody that's like super confident and smart to being somebody who's maybe not as certain about things anymore, I think that's a very small but very poignant example of character development, to see him go from knowledgeable to not so knowledgeable. Like, getting stupider is a sign of growth, okay? I'm going to go on the record saying that not knowing something is a sign of growth, because instead of trying to like BS his way through it and make something up, he just kind of looks at them exasperated and is like, I don't know.
Yeah, I do love Tech. He didn't get a lot of development this season. He didn't get a extreme amount of content. I do love Tech. I hope we get more development and more just from him next season, and get some more depth to him, and stump him a few more times.
He says, I've heard that next season we'll have a time jump. What do you think about that?
That is something that I very much hope is true. I like time jumps. I like it when you can open a season and it's not like, I think, look, there's a lot of things about the sequel trilogy that I like and don't like. And there's a lot of things. And genuinely, I love the way that Force Awakens interfaces with Last Jedi. I love that you can watch it as one big movie. But at the same time, it kind of sucks too. The fact that there is no development between the two movies. They can't really do anything. The characters are kind of still the same. And they can't do anything. Whereas when you have a time jump, it's like, okay, we're moving forward. Stuff's happened. There's implications. The characters have developed since we last saw them, and stuff's happened, so that you can. It's much more interesting to me to catch up with them as opposed to catching up with them immediately after the season airs. This season. And then nothing's changed and whatever. Like, I want to see them like, oh, they've been running bounty hunter jobs. Oh, Echo left because he was tired of their crap. And, and we're going to find out what happens. Like, there's any number of things that can be different. And it can immediately move the plot forward. You can learn about it through the season.
Yeah, it's almost like you jump ahead and then go back and catch up a little bit.
Right. Exactly.
Instead of just like pushing forward from where you're currently at and letting it all unfold for you right here and right now, gives you a chance to kind of like backtrack a little bit and experience something else from it. So
plus I love the idea of catching up with them, and maybe they're a little different. Maybe they've changed their armor. Maybe they look a little different. Maybe Omega's a little bit older. She'll have a new character model. She'll look a little bit different. Maybe hair's longer. Stuff like that. I love the visual stuff of like changing of the characters and stuff like that.
Some of the fan art of her when she's like a little more grown up.
I love it, man.
With her light bow was like, oh yes, I am here for that.
Yeah.
So
good.
I did enjoy seeing that, and I enjoy how much the fan base is kind of getting around her.
Yeah.
Like it was kind of a gamble. Let's be honest. It was kind of a gamble introducing a new clone that had an Aussie accent and didn't sound much like D. Bradley Baker does. And so, there was definitely like a bit of new to introduce, but I really feel like everything that they introduced, particularly in her character, was really well done. So I'm very glad of that.
Yeah. Every once in a while I'll see I don't like that kid, she's annoying. But like 90% of the online chatter that I see, which is a lot, and usually it's a lot of activity, is like, protect Omega at all costs. I love that.
Bear in mind, those were probably the same bitchy fanboys that had a problem with Ahsoka in season 1.
Yeah, the totally people that just aren't self-aware enough to like, yeah, you hated Ahsoka back in the day, but now you love her, but you pretend you always loved her.
And now you cheer over Rosario Dawson getting her own Ahsoka live action show. Meanwhile, there's message boards back in 2008 that would say otherwise.
Look, all I need is a picture from season 1 of Ahsoka and a picture of Rosario Dawson Ahsoka. And just over the first picture, it says, if you don't like me at this, you don't deserve me at this. All right. You don't deserve live action Ahsoka if you hated the original Ahsoka. That's what I'm saying.
I'm thinking of like the first screenshot we got of her from when she disembarks the shuttle in the Clone Wars movie,
right?
Like the outfit that she's got there, and then we do one of like Rosario with the white lightsabers, and we make it into that Office meme where it's like corporate needs you to find the difference between these two photos, and then Pam has like one of those, and then the other one is Rosario, and then you scene and she's like, it's the same picture.
Exactly.
Like I'm straight up thinking of I'm gonna go do that now. If you don't make that meme, I will, buddy. Because I think that would just drive some people crazy, and I want to be controversial.
We will collaborate after the show. We'll make this happen. All right.
Most of the other questions kind of refer to like next season predictions or stuff that we promised Sean we would talk about with him. But Jesse asks, will we see Inquisitors, or maybe even Darth Vader, or other cameos that could be unexpected come future seasons?
I say yes to Vader because they can't avoid that fan service. All right, Vader's got to show up in everything. If he's in the thing, he's going to show up. Even if it's just a little cameo. I would say no to Inquisitors because Inquisitors are like there to hunt down Jedi. Like they're not going to show up unless there's a Jedi on board. Unless the bad guy starts running around with a Jedi, I don't think that's going to be the case. I don't think that makes a whole lot of sense. But Vader, I would bet money on.
See, I get the fan service. I do, but I also I don't see it. I don't.
You could be right. You could be right.
I don't know why. Like, we got him for all of 15 seconds in the very, very end of the Clone Wars, and that was it. Like, we didn't get a whole lot of Vader there. We got a little bit of Vader in Rebels, but not a whole lot. And we didn't even get Ahsoka in this first season. And if we didn't get Ahsoka in this first season, I have a hard time seeing Vader being in it. If we can't even go to a primary Clone Wars character, if we only got Rex for brief cameos in 2 or 3 episodes, and we're kind of pumping the brakes on Ahsoka, we're a long way from progressing all the way up to Vader, man. We only got Tarkin for what, 2 episodes and then a cameo in the finale? Some of these characters that we're talking about just haven't played as prominent a role in the goings on of this show. So unless things really, really kick into high gear, I just only see Crosshair and Rampart being the primary antagonists of season 2. Anything beyond that, it kind of depends on the two of theirs relationship. The relationship
Right.
between Rampart and Crosshair, is it reparable, or does Crosshair off him and you've got to bring in somebody else? If that happens, my first pick would be Thrawn, but maybe that's just because I really, really want Thrawn in more television. But
I like the idea of Thrawn showing up a lot. But clearly, Vader is going to show up in the last scene of the Bad Batch where he kills all of the Bad Batch members. That's where it's going to be his scene. No, seriously though. I don't know any inside scoops there. Promise. I agree with you. I hope that they pull back and say we're not going to use Vader. Vader's not going to show up. We're not going to use him. Because they could have done that with this season finale. I was fully expecting a huge cameo. I was expecting, Rex and Cut and Gregor and all of them to get together, and they're going to show up, and they're going to show up in a big submarine or something.
A very Avengers style, rescue type of thing.
Even Ahsoka. I was fully expecting Ahsoka could show up.
I kind of was too. I thought that the reason we hadn't seen much of Rex was because he was out recruiting help. And the more people we saw show up, like Cut and Gregor and Rex and, whoever else, I was thinking, they're not just going to have them show up for one episode. This is foreshadowing that we're going to see more of them later on. And the only person we haven't seen yet is Wolf. Yeah. And if there was ever a cameo to show up in season 2, I'm betting money that Wolf shows up.
I think it's inevitable.
We've had 2 of the 3 older clones from Rebels that live in the what is that one? Not TE? What type of TE? The Walker. The Clone Wars Walker. 2 of those 3 that were living on the Walker in Rebels have shown up already. So that means we're going to get the 3rd one. We have to close out the trifecta and bring those guys together. So if there was ever a cameo that I could pretty much guarantee in the next season, it would be Wolf. But other than that, I would hope for Ahsoka, but I'm not going to hold my breath, because if they had her show up in the season 2 finale of this and the season 2 finale of Rebels, it seems a little too pedantic, but it's possible. Jesse's in the live chat saying just stopping by to say hello. Unfortunately, precedence. I will come back and watch when I can. Well, that's the beauty of having it on YouTube, dude. You can watch it whenever the hell you want.
It's right here. You can literally rewind right now and watch it again if you want to.
Go back.
That's the beauty of it.
I legit did that during you guys' first live video feed of the Star Wars Underworld podcast, because I hopped in late because I suck at multitasking, and you're like, Zach, you're in the intro, dude. Like, wait, what? And I was like, zoop. I had to go back and see the little cameo at me that I made, and I appreciate that, and congratulations to you guys, by the way, on finally making it to the big screen. Like, that's a pretty big thing. I remember when we did that a couple of months ago, it was a pretty big deal. So I'm excited to see where that takes you guys.
Yeah, very exciting. We did our second episode last night. That's out on YouTube. Go over to youtube.com/Star Wars Underworld. You can get there's also a Bad Batch discussion, which I was not involved in because they did it at 2 a.m. But yeah, it was a lot. But
I'm a night owl, but I don't think even I could podcast at 2 a.m. Like, I think we did that in 2016, and I learned my lesson after that.
Yeah, the Rogue One discussion was like my limit.
Oh gosh, like I remember watching Dominic fall asleep at the sound mixer. Like, he was just.
I cannot believe we did that. I cannot believe we're like, yeah, let's do it in the middle of the night. I'm like, why?
Yeah. And then Joey Mays out in Pennsylvania, it gets to be about 2 or 3 a.m. on the East Coast, and it's like 6 a.m. on the East Coast. It's like 2 or 3 on the West Coast where we're at, and he's like, hey, I'm waking up to start my day, and I'm listening to you guys go at it in the middle of the night. And I was like, oh my God, we're really up pretty damn late, aren't we?
Ugh. Yeah, it's not a good idea.
If you want to hear some of the weirdest Rogue One tangents in the world, that would be the place to get your fix. All right. I think we got one more question. It comes from Chris Abbott, who's actually hosting Outer Rim Transmissions right now, probably talking about the exact same stuff that we are, but he's going to probably hop back around and listen to it. And this is actually perfect timing, because we can finally get into this discussion because he's finally back. And I don't know if he's going to magically produce his way into the video feed or whatnot.
Is he going to show up here? Is he going to show up down there? Where's he going to go?
I'm predicting the bottom third right here. I'm predicting that. And
you never know.
And he's going to help us talk about this particular topic. It's one that Chris sent in to us. It's one that Joel sent in to us. It's one that's just been a topic of discussion so far. He wants us to talk about Mount Tantiss. He spelled it tennis, like tennis courts, but it's.
I think that was probably his autocorrect getting that.
Probably, because Chris usually knows better than to do that. But Sean, whenever you have the opportunity, man, let's talk Mount Tantiss. He did take the upper third.
He switched it.
He flipped it. He flipped it on us. But Chris wants to talk about Mount Tantiss and tying to Mandoverse and the Heir to the Empire and stuff like that. Dude, I was a little surprised to find the art descriptions that confirmed this in the first place. Like, how did you feel about that being confirmed? And how do you feel that that's going to play out in season 2 and other parts of Star Wars as we move forward?
So I need to be upfront and say that I've only seen the first 4 episodes of Bad Batch season 1.
Okay.
When this happened, my phone just blew up because people that in the Star Wars world that I talk to anyway know that I'm a big Legends guy, and I'm like, okay, well, I'll check this out. And without even seeing the confirmation, basically as soon as I looked at the mountain, I was like, it's a little different than prior descriptions of it, but it's like, yeah, no, that fits. That's Mount Tantiss.
Right.
And I mean, it's an exciting time to be a Star Wars fan. And at the same time, not to, bring up any negative stuff, it's kind of a weird time to be a Star Wars fan too, because you've seen so much. Like they came in, Ben would be able to tell us when they squashed the old canon. I think that was like 2013.
That was like 2013, 2014 when they made that official announcement, because it was right after the Disney sale and everything.
I always understood why they didn't keep everything that happens like 30 years in between 6 and 7. That I got, because that's a long time to tell in a very short amount of time at the beginning of a movie and keep all the canon and catch everybody up. But I never understood why they squashed it all. And now, if you look at various media formats of Star Wars, all the legend stuff seems to become, well, not all of it, but there's a lot of legend stuff that's coming back.
Yeah.
And you don't pull Mount Tantiss for the sake of, hey, let's just name this thing Mount Tantiss, with the other things that are happening in different Star Wars media right now, meaning Thrawn and company.
It's all these things are aligning. It's not just like, oh, we got Mount Tantiss. It's like, oh, Thrawn's over here. We got cloning over here. We got this. And it's all coming together.
Starting to feel very MCU-like, and I'm intrigued.
Yeah. Yeah, and like they didn't have to do this. They could have just, they didn't have to do it in the concept art either. They could have just kept it a secret, or it could have just been just another mountain storehouse or whatever. The fact that they're going all the way and so on, like, yeah, this is Mount Tantiss, this is Wayland. Also, Wayland got another mention. Star Wars explained in his video, one of his videos, that Wayland was made canon by I think it was the Secrets of the Empire. Not Secrets of the Empire, it's the other VR game that's out there. It showed up there. So it's been canon for a year or so, and now they've got this. And now we're going into this, and now we know Thrawn's coming up, and it seems it was already seeming like Mandalorian, the Mandoverse, was doing its own version of the Heir to the Empire. Now we got this. Now it's more dominoes are falling.
Well, for people who may not know exactly what we're talking about, let's backpedal just a second and give.
Yeah, I forgot. Not everybody knows everything like we do.
Not everybody's a Legends fan. I mean, we just convinced DMT Infinity.
Wait, I thought it was obvious.
Well, I mean, we just convinced DMT Infinity to go watch Attack of the Clones, for crying out loud. There's probably like several people that don't know what the importance is about Mount Tantiss being listed in the concept art. But in the finale, Nala Se gets brought to a remote location. Yep, there you go. She gets brought to a remote location, and you were mentioning the clone commandos that were there helping to defend the facility. And it's very remote, very isolated, very far away from everything. And in the Legends canon, Palpatine, the Emperor, kept a lot of his treasures in Mount Tantiss, so much so that like his very favorite treasures were stored at the end of a very elaborate labyrinth at the base of the mountain. So like the more treasured his possessions were, the deeper into the mountain you had to go to find them. And it's believed, correct me if I'm wrong, fellas, because I did just a quick wiki search to make sure I had the context brought up, but there were clone growth chambers at Mount Tantiss as well that helped, was it Thrawn, kind of revive a concept of cloning at some point in the Legends canon. There was somebody, it was either Thrawn or maybe Sabaoth who...
Sabaoth, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Who was trying to basically revive the Force-sensitive cloning expectations. And now, by taking those concepts from the Legends canon, we now introduce the plausibility of the Emperor creating that clone of himself that we see in the canonized movie, The Rise of Skywalker.
Right. Like in the plot of Heir to the Empire is basically, Thrawn trying to build this army very, very quickly, and he steals all of these dreadnoughts and gets them, and he needs people to run them. And so he goes to Mount Tantiss, where there is a bunch of cloning pods, and those cloning pods are known for being unstable, but they can create clones very, very quickly, and they're not as it's all pre the backstory of the Clone Wars is there in the End of the Empire, but it's not the Clone Wars that we know. It's the prequels version of that. So there's a little bit of wiggle room in like the canon, but like you can mostly read it and go like, okay, yeah, I see where they're coming from here. But basically it. And so now we can kind of retrofit that to say, okay, now the Kaminoans have come to Mount Tantiss. We're seeing a direct line from the prequels, what they established with the Kaminoans, to what is established in the EU, which is Mount Tantiss being this storehouse holding these cloning technology that can potentially be used by Thrawn maybe in the future.
I think it's really important to remember that the Thrawn in Legends, well, there's definitely a lot of that Thrawn still in the current canon Thrawn. There's still two very different characters. Thrawn in Legends, well, being a tactical genius and someone who is able to really like inspire the people that served under him, was still a villain. You know, he was totally, game for slavery and whatever he needed to do to win the battle. Thrawn in current canon, it is way more in the gray area.
More anti-hero, yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly the word. Thrawn in Legends is just straight up villain. Thrawn in this canon is not. And, the anti-hero we're saying is probably spot on, Ben. So I'm curious to see what they're going to do with it. They're not doing it just for the sake of doing it. I think Timothy Zahn has one more Thrawn prequel book coming out.
Sounds right.
We know Thrawn's going to be in Ahsoka. I've heard it's not just Ahsoka. There's plans here. And I think everybody just assumes that it's going to be. This is just me speculating. Sorry for rambling on here, guys.
No problem.
But a lot of people just think like, oh, Thrawn's going to be their Thanos. He's going to be the bad guy. And I don't know if you guys have read Thrawn Treason without spoiling too much. There's sort of like this other species in the unknown regions that's very
Grisk,
very Vong-like, but not Vong. They're the Grisk. And I have a hunch that this is going that route, that the people that we're following and the reason why we don't see them in the new movies is they're going to go deal with that issue. Because where have Thrawn been the entire time?
Okay, so some of the characters that we're seeing in the Mandoverse are basically assembling to be able to combat the threat of the Grisk.
What's that sound like? Jeez, I feel like that sounds like a movie series we've all been following for 10 years.
So like essentially we could be setting up and like Ahsoka, where is Grand Admiral Thrawn, all this stuff, setting it up that Thrawn is going to be the big bad when maybe he's the one person that they need to defeat the Grisk, because that Grisk thing has to be going somewhere. I thought it was gonna be a one-off thing, but then it kept showing up in the books, and I'm like, okay, there's more to this apparently.
I thought there was going to be a conclusion at the end of Thrawn Treason to that, and there was not at all.
Wow.
And plus there's the whole Chiss ascendancy, right? Like everyone talks about expanding Star Wars, and they've done that in novels. They're starting to do it in television, but like you could really expand it now.
What if Thrawn returns to the ascendancy, and it's almost like when Jon Snow had to go to the wildlings to ask them for help. He's like, I know that we have always been on opposite sides up until this point, but there is a threat greater than the war that has gone on between us. Not that the Star Wars universe has had a war with the Ascendancy, but they've always been like a Cold War almost, kind of keeping their distance to a certain degree. And it's like, yeah, I know things have been frigid between us, but if we don't band together, we risk losing everything to this bigger threat. And if that becomes the Grisk, then I am very interested to see where that leads. Not only for the potential Vong tie-ins, rather. Because I read up on the Grisk, and they are fascinating. Like, a lot of the descriptions are very similar to the warlike creatures that the Vong were in the Legends canon. But these guys are supposedly nomadic. Like, they don't really go to any particular home world, and they really just go into battle for the sake of going into battle. And if you've got those types of dozens or hundreds of starships at your disposal, you're looking at a dogfight the size of something Star Wars has never seen before.
And either either way, we're heading towards something really epic in just the TV realm. Possibly something more epic than what we got in the movies.
I just think they'd have some explaining to do. If I get it, not everybody reads the books, but we're talking about the highest selling Star Wars books in the new canon novels. And we're talking about Thrawn, a character that a lot of diehards follow anyway. I think you would have to like really explain, okay, how did he go from, yeah, he's with the Imperials and he raised or he went up in Imperial rank, became a Grand Admiral. But like those books make it clear that as much as he's there to help the Empire, he's very much there because of the Chiss and what's going on. And like you can help us if we can help you sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And we never get to see the conclusion of that in the books. And with the Grist, like Zach mentioned, again, without giving away too much, it almost the way I felt. Ben, have you read Treason yet?
I am not caught up on the Thrawn books. To be honest, I was bored. It wasn't gripping me as much as some other books. So I'm kind of behind on Star Wars books anyway, and I've heard good things. So maybe the audiobooks is very easy to consume, and so I need to go back to them.
Yeah, no, they definitely get better. But it almost felt like Timothy Zahn's hands were tied with the Grist, almost like he was only allowed to do certain things because a lot of it was left open ended. And I thought there'd be a conclusion, and there wasn't. And let's be honest, in terms of in story, there's not supposed to be like any sort of massive war that happened in between 6 and 7. It was, but if the war happens in the unknown regions, and these books do a good job of making it clear, if you get out there, that doesn't mean you're getting back, because of how it all has to do with hyperspace lanes, which I also technically think connects to the world between worlds, and it's just nuts. There's a bunch of mythology stuff going on out there that
Mithron Nerudo mythology.
It's gonna be interesting. I could see, like, for the general going audience, if they just brought him back as the villain and it's the Imperial Remnant, it's a short little battle. I tend to think it's not going to be that, and they're going to go do something in the unknown regions. Hell, how much did they tease the unknown regions in The Rise of Skywalker? We literally go there and we see how complicated it is to find your way through there.
Right. And right. I think, like, I love, like, if they announced tomorrow, okay, we're doing Heir to the Empire, we're doing the Thrawn trilogy in live action in a TV show, I would be like, yes, I would be ecstatic. But we know that story. We've seen that story. We've read it 1,000 times. I've read it at least twice now. Like, it's great. I kind of want to see something different. I'm open to, like, them going in a different direction and doing something unique and building something into this thing that's, like, has that mythology built in, but is something completely new and has been supported by Timothy Zahn and all these other great creators.
Can I also point out that the next Star Wars movie is called Rogue Squadron? And, well, it takes place, I think, after Rise of Skywalker. That seems to be the hint at it, anyway.
It's not confirmed yet, so who knows?
It's a movie that's going to be heavily involved in space, and who's to say that you can't cross some of that stuff over? I think you're right, though, Ben. I think they're going to go in a different direction. I think they're going to go into the unknown regions. They're not just going to repeat the same thing, although who knows?
I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to it, like you said, Ben. But I think there's enough source material that you know what to build and how to build it, but these guys are creative enough that they can put their own spin on it. They can put their own twist on it, give you something that is still satisfying, but not a copy and paste of someone else's work. I mean, even Zahn himself isn't using the exact same character design of the Thrawn character that he created back in the 90s. So if his Thrawn of the current canon is not the same as the Thrawn of the Legends canon, then the story surrounding him shouldn't be the same either.
If I can entice anybody to go check out Thrawn Treason, which I do think is probably the weakest of the 3 novels, but still solid, is the end of Star Wars Rebels basically gets better explained. And what you see on screen isn't necessarily what you think, is what I would say.
Okay, you have me at that, and I think Del Rey is paying you because you keep talking about this treason thing and trying to convince everybody. You convinced me, so there you go.
I wish.
I hope you get your royalty check.
Oh man, I haven't gotten any kind of royalties from anything that I've done in the last couple of years almost. I think the last one I got was from the football broadcast I did last year. So that sort of thing is just not even on my radar. This is all in fun, but this is a really fun speculation because all it took was landing a character on a mountaintop. Like literally, we've gone from talking about the Bad Batch to speculating about the Mandoverse because of one character landing on one mountaintop that, like, one piece of concept art confirmed to us that it is this particular location. Like, this is like the weirdest domino to fall that like sets up this type of chain of events. And it's like both exciting and nerve-wracking because for me personally, I hate counting my chickens before they hatch, but all of the signs seem to point to it going in this direction. And that is very exciting. If it doesn't, then yay for season 2 of The Bad Batch, you know? But I can't help but wonder, you know, if we're going to be seeing more time on Tantiss at some point, on Wayland in season 2 at some point. Will we get to see some of the other artifacts? There was even speculation that thought, what if this becomes the facility that clones the Zillo Beast? Like,
oh, I love that.
I know that that's kind of far-fetched, but that Godzilla-like two-parter from the Clone Wars was one of the funnest romps in the whole series, in my opinion.
Good.
So, like, we never saw what happened to that doctor other than the orders that she got to clone the beast. If we're getting into cloning technology, hell, let's clone a Palpatine, let's clone a Jango Fett girl, and let's clone a giant Godzilla knockoff and have it go destroy some planet or other. Like
it really was disappointing in The Rise of Skywalker when Palpatine, you know, reveals that he's been a clone or whatever, and he's revived himself. If you could jump into any clone body, why wouldn't you jump into a clone Zillo Beast body? Come on, Palpy.
Man, imagine
Be at play here too, though. We know a little bit of his backstory now, and let's not forget that the most notable clone out of Legends that came from this exact facility happened to be a clone of the guy who popped up at the end of Mando season 2.
That's true.
Which I don't think they would do that, but oh man.
Which is why Luke looks so weird at the end of The Mandalorian. He was Luke all along.
It's not Luke, it's Luke.
And that's what's going to be the plot of season 3 of Mandalorian is Din Djarin rescuing Grogu from
there's a pull.
Rook is dead, unfortunately, or maybe he's not. He died in Rebels. Maybe they'll bring him back.
I think he's toast.
Oh,
which means Thrawn can't die the same way. So, at least not by the same guy. So
no surprise. We got a couple more questions here. Do we want to get to those real quick?
Yeah, by all means. Let's get into those before we have to call it a night.
Okay, so Sean, you haven't seen all of the things, but feel free to answer the questions as we do. First one, I believe. Let's go back. Okay, we covered Mount Tantiss.
We covered Tantiss as best we could.
We got Joey May says your future expectations, direction show will take, and your hopes for season 2 and beyond.
Well,
we've kind of talked some about that.
Since Sean's only seen the first 4 episodes,
I know what happens though. Like it's spoiler free, so.
Well, obviously, you want Thrawn to show up and clone Luke and all that kind of stuff.
No, I don't. Actually, I don't. When's this take place? A few years.
This is right after Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, see, that doesn't work. That doesn't work with the novels that they've written, and it's cool that this place is there and Thrawn could come upon it at some point, but Thrawn should not be there right now, unless they're going to make one.
I thought the novel timeline was a bit further down the line. So
yeah, so I would just like to see them. I said on your chat last night, you guys were on there, and I popped in towards the end that it's okay to build a show with new characters and start to like those characters and not have Obi-Wan Kenobi or Boba Fett or Luke or the Emperor or
Right.
Vader come in and steal the spotlight in the season finale. It's okay to give the characters who built the series or the season the spotlight when it counts at the end, and I respected them for doing that. So I think they should keep the focus where it should be on those, whether they all die or not. I would assume eventually they would. Keep it on them is what I would say. You built it on them, keep it on them, but don't let the show go on forever. 2 seasons is good, even 3.
Yeah, that'll be my speculation / hopes for thing is hopefully they keep the focus on the Bad Batch. Yeah, we get some great cameos here and there, but ultimately it's about Omega and Tick and Crosshair and Wrecker. Yeah, all those guys.
Ricka. Oh, but
that wasn't bad.
if I mean, I've got a meme that I made that was like a really terrible meme that was like how everyone else sees Tech, and it's just a picture of Tech, and it's like how Omega sees him, and it's a picture of the little bug.
Tick, tick.
Tick. But for me, I hope to learn a little bit more about Omega in season 2. I hope that they find a new base of operations. I don't want them to keep working for Sid.
I agree.
I feel like she was a means to an end and helped them kind of figure out or navigate that type of underworld type life that they might need to do for other secret missions and stuff. But I don't think working for her is like something that they need to think about long term. So I hope they've got a new base of operations for season 2. I hope that we get confirmation that Omega has at least a high midichlorian count, if not some kind of force sensitivity. And I hope we get a little more Tantiss. Those are my 3 big things for the next season of the show.
And Tech was wrong. She secretly is a female clone of Palpatine.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Oopsie. Don't want to go there. Don't want to go there.
Don't know if I'm on that rabbit hole.
Okay. Well, Matthias was asking what was our favorite cameo. I know what mine is. Sean, did you? I know there was a couple of cameos in the couple first few episodes.
I don't think I've seen the episode yet with it, but I've seen all the images because it blew up all over the internet. I mean, Rex is awesome. Who doesn't want to see more Rex?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and his appearances, I feel like, were very well balanced. Like he serves the purpose that he needs to, but doesn't take away from the attention on the squad, which is what the show is all about.
Right.
Like he doesn't like take over the screen time. He adds to it. And
sorry, Zach. They added Rex, right? So they could have easily added Ahsoka with him. But they resisted the urge because then that really would have taken the attention off. And they kept it on the clones, and Zach's spot on.
And I love the inclusion of Rex, just the fact of they use him so sparingly. He's literally in one episode, full episode. That's it. It's not like they couldn't get the actor back to voice Rex. He was there all along. They chose to give Rex one good episode and that's it, and let him go. I love that. But okay, Zach, what was your favorite cameo? Was it Rex or someone else?
I did enjoy Rex, but I think just based on how I talked about this character earlier, it should be pretty obvious who my favorite cameo was. I don't think I have screamed that loud at the TV since I saw Evan Peters show up in WandaVision. Cad Bane showing up in episode 8 Reunion. The music that went behind him was just very good, the bad, and the ugly type of vibes. The camera work and just hearing Corey Burton reprising the role. I mean, everything about it was just so perfect. I thought, yeah, this is a pretty decent episode. I can see why people enjoy it. And then they get to the shuttle and you hear the gravelly mechanical voice. Wasn't much work. Da-da-dum! And you're just like, ah! I practically had a seizure over that because, again, we hadn't seen him since season 4, episode 18 of the Clone Wars, February of 2012. And then we get him in this episode. To have him back in the fold was like one of the highlights of the season for me.
We are of the same mind. I was floored to have Cad Bane back, and just so good. He's like one of the all-time favorite bounty hunter characters, one of my favorite characters from Clone Wars. To have him back was just so great. As you said, like literally well before Disney took over, well before the Disney sale, months before it, that's the last time we saw Cad Bane. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And to have him back. And literally one of my few disappointments with the season is the fact that I was assuming that he would come back, that he would have a part to play maybe in the finale. He didn't. But he's still out there. He'll show up again, I'm sure, in Bad Batch. Or just the fact that he's alive after Clone Wars. He survived the war. He's out there. He'll show up in other places. I'm glad he's here. And that the cowboy music and all this stuff, it's so good.
Didn't you make a post on Twitter that went semi-viral from Cad Bane's appearance? You took the mandolin from The Road to El Dorado, and
I did. It was a picture of Cad Bane. Well, it says I can't remember. I had to look at the tweet again. It's basically the Bad Batch. Cad Bane shows up. And then it was the Kiners, as in the people that make the music, the Kiner brothers and their father. Don't go with that. The Kiners, and it's just got the guy from El Dorado just strumming that guitar, and like anytime he's on screen, it's so good.
It was brilliant. Oh, that was.
That guy, somebody on a podcast was like, mentioned me. I was like, oh wow, this is gone super viral. People were like talking about it on other shows. This is great.
The grade A meme right up there with your reference to the monkeys with the Mandalorian show titles. Then I saw his face.
That one's my pin tweet, and it probably always will be. It's Din Djarin, and then I saw his face, and I came up with that one. I'm like, this is gold. Most of the time I come up with a tweet and it's gold. I think it's gold and it's not. No one likes it. No one tweets it. That one I'll have to actually look and see. It went viral. 1,316 retweets, 8,000 likes. Okay, did pretty good. I'm very proud of that one.
Jeez, Louisiana,
yeah.
Dude.
Then I saw Din Djarin's face. Now I'm a believer.
That was a good one. Okay, let's talk about I guess just our thoughts on the season, thoughts on the finale, and overall planet scores, because we've got to do a little bit of barbecue and then sign off for the night. It is getting kind of late here, and there's another show happening right after this one concludes. So Sean's in for a late night tonight, and
oh damn,
let him try and get that ball rolling as soon as we can. Dude, feel free to contribute your thoughts. Did you skip ahead to the finale by any chance just to see Tantiss? Have you seen anything of the final two?
I've seen the images. I basically know what's happened in the entire series. It's just hard to find extra free time right now.
Sure.
I think if you wanted to watch the finale, you could basically watch it. Like, I'm not saying like nothing happens in the other episodes, but like if you watch the first few episodes, you got the gist of it.
Seen the first few, he kind of knows the gist, and then you see like the last two to help tie things up. Like, that's doable.
I think the rest of the season is completely watchable and great, but if you're short on time, I understand.
Yeah, but the 2-part finale is pretty self-explanatory. I'll go first if that's okay, because I need to take a drink of water, and so I'm gonna do this and then just drink until we get to the end. I am in agreement with your thoughts at the top of the show. This is the most solid first season of Star Wars animation that we've gotten. And so that's including Resistance, that's including Rebels, that's including Clone Wars. Out of the 4 that we've gotten, this is definitely the best one. I wouldn't say that it's better than the first season of Mando, so it's not like the best first season of Star Wars television. But it's probably like top 2, I would think. I think I would put this first season of a Star Wars TV show behind the first season of Mando as far as quality content, hitting the ground running, firing on all cylinders, leaving you wanting more in the second season. Like, it did all of those things. I, of course, feel like there could be some more character development for other characters. I feel like there were certain episodes that were placed in the wrong part of the season. I feel like, what was it? I think episode 13, Infested. I think that one should have happened before the Ryloth storyline, not after it. It felt rather jarring as far as like carrying the momentum in the
I think that episode shouldn't have happened at all. Just a hot take.
Oh, damn. But we're kind of in a similar mindset that like just that placement of that episode either should have been elsewhere or non-existent in your case. But other than that, it's a fun show to watch. I enjoyed what I saw. Didn't try to overthink it too much, just because, much like any show, you just got to take it for what it is instead of what you expect it to be. And I just expected an extension of the Clone Wars with characters that we were familiar with, and was hopeful for cameos, which we got a bunch of. And there is a lot of resolution, but a lot of unresolved stuff as well. And so when you blend all of that together, it makes a pretty solid show. Not perfect by any means, but a lot of really, really great moments, a lot of really great episodes. And I think I'd end up giving this first season somewhere in the range of probably an 8.5 out of 10.
Makes a lot of sense. And just for the record, for those who maybe you can see it, maybe you can't see it.
Yes. Yes.
Just for the record.
Brilliant.
Sean, do you have any final thoughts? Did you give final thoughts? I'm sorry. I want to give you the floor.
I would just say this is going to sound dark, but I really hope if season 2 ends it, or if season 3 ends it, that these characters, like I said, it's sound dark. I hope these characters all get killed off, and that the Bad Batch is who raised Omega and shapes Omega into whoever that character ends up becoming. I like the idea of, it's almost kind of like Saving Private Ryan. They all go, Tom Hanks and company all go over there and they save Matt Damon, but most of them die, but it was their sacrifice that allowed him to go on and have a life and have a family. And I know it's animated, but I would really like to see an ending like that. I think that would be cool.
So you're saying the biggest and best cameo to come in the Bad Batch is Matt Damon, not playing a character, but actually Matt Damon. It's just like, hi, I'm Matt Damon.
Who did Damon play in Ragnarok again?
He played Loki.
So he'll be Loki.
That's the Loki variant we were missing in Loki, is the Matt Damon Loki variant.
Oh, damn! Right.
I'm telling you, that's a missed opportunity. Okay, I'm gonna also echo your sentiments, Zach. I think I'm gonna give it also an 8.5. Before you said that, I was thinking 8.5 out of 10 was my credit score. My credit score.
And I wish the credit score was 8.5. Jeez.
That's damn good, man. That's impressive.
Yeah. I've been told that. But my planet score, I think, will be 8.5 out of 10 because, like I said, I do have some gripes. I wish we could have gotten more Echo. I wish we could have got more Cad Bane. That's not really a legit criticism, but this season was not perfect by any means. There was a couple episodes I could have done completely without. But overall, I think it was very, very strong as far as animated Star Wars go. I think it was one of the strongest seasons overall, and just the character development that we get. Omega was great, a standout character that I didn't know even going in that I would love her as much as I would. I think the internet has definitely fallen in love with her, but I didn't know I would grow so attached to her so quickly. character that we didn't even know existed until a few weeks before this series even came out. But overall, I think it's great. Season 2, I cannot wait for. I didn't know I would grow this fond of this show as much as I have, because this show, I didn't know where it was going to land with me. I didn't know how it was going to actually affect me. I love Clone Wars. This is an extension of Clone Wars. This is pretty much exactly what I wanted, but at the same time, I wasn't that big of a fan of the Bad Batch characters going in, but now I am. So I got to give Bad Batch credit for winning me over, and can't wait for season 2.
Well, whenever that happens, we'll probably end up talking about it at some point here on the show, one way or another.
We'll be old men talking about season 12 of the Bad Batch. Just wait.
Jesus. I don't know about that. But what I do know is, unfortunately, due to athletic obligations and the other broadcasting that I do, this is going to be my last episode for the next few months. We did try and bring it up to a every 2-week format instead of an every week format, partially because we knew this was coming. We knew that I was going to be taking a bit of a hiatus and I wouldn't be able to be on the program as much. And so it helps Ben as far as scheduling guests is concerned. He's only going to have to do it maybe 5 or 6 times instead of 12 or 13 times. So we don't have Jake around anymore. He's got family obligations, and we get that. We respect that. We miss you, dude. Hope you're tuning in still while you're driving.
Sorry, dog, going out there, having a life, having kids, and having, God.
How dare he?
Yeah.
But I get it. And so we're making the most of what we can, and there'll be some pretty cool people that are going to try and fill in the meantime. But I'm glad that we got this discussion in before I hit the ground running with football season. You can follow me at that social media platform right there, at Zach the Voice, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, TikTok even. I'm making TikTok videos now. I'm not very good at it, but I'm making them. So hit me up on all those different social media places to keep up with, whatever I'm doing outside of IPC. I greatly appreciate both of you guys helping, keep the ship afloat in the meantime. And I look forward to being back in November. Hopefully November.
I can say with all honesty and respect, man, respect the hustle, respect what you're doing. Hopefully you can continue to get your dreams and make all that stuff happen, because I know you're working very, very, very hard. You guys have no idea what this guy's been doing. He's been working his ass off to make stuff happen, and I'm very proud of him. And we're going to miss you. We're going to miss you. I've already been talking to some interesting people. As much as I hate to do the show without you, there's some interesting people that are going to be coming on here to do the show. I think you guys and people haven't been on the show in quite a while.
And I'll still be available on Monday nights, which is usually when we record our R-rated IPC show.
Yeah.
So if you want a little more Zach in your life, go become a patron at patreon.com/IPC Podcast. I'll try and make it for as many of those episodes as I can. I'm pretty sure our September episode is going to be about the Suicide Squad. And so you can expect this panel and maybe somebody else like Jesse on the call for that, talking about the Suicide Squad come next month. So there'll still be to talk about there. We do have one more thing to talk about before we call it a night, though. If you're still watching live with us, thank you for tuning in. Get out your hashtags, put them in the chat. If you're listening on social media, then hit us up with the hashtag BBQWatch. It is time for that segment, and I know Ben's running short on time, but I went to a place that it looked like it was like a converted Sonic drive-in. Sean, do you guys have Sonics up there in Canada?
No, but I know all about them.
Do you know of them though, and their concepts with the people that still bring the food to you? You push the little button and you read off of the menu, that kind of thing. Is there anything similar to that up there?
A&W used to be that way, but it hasn't been that way in a long time.
Yeah, some of those down here used to do that too.
Yeah. Well, I found one in the middle of nowhere, right next door to where one of my company's ATM machines are. It's between here and Oklahoma in this little side road that's like 15 minutes off of the main road. Like it's kind of out there, but it is a drive-in barbecue establishment. They've got a place where you can pull your car up and park, look at the menu right outside your driver's side window, and I swear the sign looks like it's 30 years old or something. and the intercom looks like something you would use to call for a nurse at a hospital in the 70s. Like it's so old, but their prices are almost that old too. Like their barbecue sandwiches are only like $5 or $6, and they're
I thought you were gonna say like 5 or 6 cents.
no, I wish, but they're very reasonably priced compared to the cost of sandwiches in the area. Like around here, if I was to try and get a barbecue sandwich like at Spring Creek or something, it's probably like $9 or $10, something like that. And so to have something that's closer to 5 or 6 is actually really good. And then they give you a side of fries for like $2, and it's not like the side of fries you get at a McDonald's or a Wendy's. Like they give you almost a separate bag for the fries, and it's just like almost a pound of steak fries in there that are just so good. And you can get a whole meal plus the tip and stuff for like just under $12. And so my thought that I wanted to pose to you guys, I know that this particular establishment looked a little bit older, but considering the way food service has been changed because of COVID, do you feel like drive-in barbecue has the potential to take off? Is it the potential future of barbecue, considering curbside service and that kind of stuff that we've had recently? Is it a future prospect for barbecue service, or did I just discover a thing of the past that needs to die out? Thoughts?
It's interesting because I've been thinking for a long time. I've been fascinated. Once when I was a kid, I went to a drive-in theater.
Mm-hmm.
And ever since then, I've told this story many times. I saw a double feature with Shrek and Spy Kids. That's how long ago I did that. Shrek was a new movie. I saw Shrek the one and only time in a theater at a drive-in. That was amazing. That drive-in has closed. There is no drive-ins anywhere near where I am. I've not been to one.
One like 20 minutes away from where I am.
See, that's crazy. I am so jealous. So I seriously like, there is a multiverse version of me that like I want to go like open a drive-in. Like that's an aspiration to me. I would love to do that.
That'd be cool.
Because there's an old drive-in here that's been gone since well before I was born. I was like, oh, I can go that and redo it, whatever. And obviously there's other things, and there's a lot of upkeep, and I've gone into like the death of drive-ins, were like the fact that, you know, you can only show movies at night and all this kind of stuff. It's a lot. There's a reason they went the way of the wagon, but I love the concept. I love the novelty of it. And so I want it to come back. I want that thing. And simultaneously, I have a Sonic oppositely right down the street from me. I can almost throw a rock and hit it from here. Mm-hmm. And it's great. During COVID, it's been even better. You can go there very safely, take your order. Just when someone comes to the car, you wear a mask. That's it. Like, you're good. Mm-hmm. And it's a great concept. And I think, you know, COVID has made us rethink everything about like, you know, going to a theater. I just went to a theater. I watched Free Guy the other day. Thankfully, no one else was in the theater. I was all alone. So that was great. But that's not always the case. I would have preferred.
Ever, by the way, just having the whole place to yourself. You could like stretch out, kick your feet up on the row in front of you and have nobody judging you. You could like provide your own commentary like the whole time through, and nobody cares. Like, nobody's gonna tell you to shush. You can like check in on your socials and stuff because nobody's telling you to don't talk or text, don't ruin the movie, all that bull crap. Like, that is a pretty cool feeling.
Yeah. So I love the drive-in concept. And I love and a barbecue place I never even thought of. Now I'm thinking, why not combine the two? Why not barbecue drive-in theater? They have a dine-in theater. That's a thing. Why not combine the two?
A drive-in, dine-in. I could get on board with that. Sean, what are your thoughts?
So I have a hard time picturing, and Ben would know more about this because, I mean, it's his profession, right? So, but I have a hard time like picturing a drive-up barbecue where the food's going to be, you know, still super fresh. You know, I'm really picky when it comes to, you know, I want my food fresh. Not that I won't eat leftovers, but if I'm paying for it, I want it fresh. You know, I don't want something that was cooked
Right.
12 hours ago and, someone's heating it up super quick in a microwave or something. That would be terrible. So I don't know if that would work, but I mean, barbecue is great, and it goes great with so much. I want to throw this out here quickly. I know we're tight on time. I don't know if this is happening down there where you guys are, but Taco Bell up here is exploring this new type of building where everything is elevated and you have 4 drive-through lines at once so that you move super quick. But if you want to eat inside,
dumb waiters that come down and give you your food.
Yeah. No, it's this, it's a while away. I think they said 4 or 5 years still. But honestly, the idea, I think, could revolutionize fast food. I know it's not barbecue, but hey,
it's in the same realm. It's the same realm. Make it happen.
Zach travels for his job. It's hard to, you want to get dinner on the road quick. Sometimes you can't. You might not be home till super late, right? And I travel for my job too. And it's like you go to a drive-through lineup and there's 25 cars in line. This would basically eliminate that. And I think that's cool. I don't know if you could do something like that with barbecue, but I found that interesting.
If Taco Bell does it, I would expect Chick-fil-A to do it in the next couple of years too.
That's entirely possible.
Chick-fil-A lines around here, at least, will stretch out into the street sometimes. The curbside service has helped improve it a little bit, but I think curbside and drive-through as a concept in general has become an even bigger craze than before, just because a lot of places had to close their lobbies because of the pandemic. And so now they're figuring out, hey, we make just as much profit with people interacting with us at the window as we did when they were sitting at our tables. I think it's going to affect the food industry as we know it. And I know that this is going beyond the scope of barbecue, but I have heard that there are places like Starbucks and there are some chicken places like Church's Chicken and places like that either already have restaurants or establishments that are like this, or they are building them where they don't even have a lobby. It's just a smaller building that is strictly drive-through oriented. You can't come in and order anything, or if you do, you're just at a window, like a plexiglass window, and you get your stuff and you go again. Like there's no tables or nothing. All you're doing is ordering from the drive-through, and everybody that works there is working the drive-through line. They're not working on the lobby. They're not working on the bar. They're not working on cleaning up the bathrooms or anything like that. Their focus is just on the drive-through. So that's why I was thinking about having drive-in barbecue, because just drive-through concepts in general seem to be taking off again.
Yeah. I'm gonna say one more thing, and then I'll shut up so we can wrap. But because I have so many things to say, and I'm trying to hold myself back. But like COVID, I think has taught us so many things. I think look at all the fast food places; they're just closed up now. They're not even opening their inside. They have to be thinking about, well, why don't we just bother with the lobby? Just make a place that's strictly drive-through, and let's just do that. Not to say that inside eating will go away, but it might be just at certain restaurants. You might have maybe you'll have a Taco Bell drive-through at one end of town and a Taco Bell eat-in at the other end of town, and that's the norm.
Very well could be. I think we just need to have like a barbecue and food related episode at some point where
I am game. I am totally game.
Like that's been a segment that we've done on the show forever, but I don't recall if we've ever done just a strictly barbecue related episode. Because in Texas, there's like barbecue cook-off competitions that you can have at the high school level where you're competing against other high schools to see who can make and produce the highest quality barbecue. There's like local places, there's chains, there's like the varieties of sauces based on the region, the specialty items based on the state. Like there's so many things you can cover about barbecue that maybe we just need a whole episode dedicated to that.
I'm game. I am absolutely game.
It'll be around Thanksgiving when I finally make it back to the show. So maybe we like blend it with like a Thanksgiving topic or something when I come back in November. But who knows? This show will be back in 2 weeks. In the meantime, keep up with us on social media at IPC Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Be sure to try and find the Intergalactic Peace Hangout or the Fandom Empire Den to be able to find all the stuff that's going on this YouTube channel and just on this show in general. in between episodes. You can find previous episodes on places like iTunes and Google Podcasts. And you can find like a whole subsection of just our episodes right here on Fandom Empire's YouTube channel. There's like a channel dedicated to that. It's like a subsection. You can find all of that. And then, like I said earlier, follow me at Zach the Voice on all the different social media platforms to keep up with the football stuff that I'll be doing for the next couple of months. But until then, hope you guys have a really great time without me, but not too much fun so that you're glad to see me when I get back.
Cool. Yeah.
Ben?
Yeah, you can follow me at Ben Hart with no E, and at SW, at the SW, and at Culture Slate, all those stuff. You know those things. Don't worry about it.
You know the drill. And like I said just a moment ago, Sean's actually going to be going live again in just a minute here with a special late night Phantom Empire exclusive. You want to tell them about that, dude?
Yeah, we're going to talk wrestling and CM Punk. So 7 years in the making, and it was fun being on, guys. And Mount Tantiss, Thrawn, Bad Batch, Legends is sort of back
to a degree, and hopefully, you know, there's that old phrase about how there's a little bit of truth in Legends, and that seems to be manifesting itself in the creation of these shows. So I'm looking forward to all of that, and looking forward to being back in a couple of months. But that is going to do it for the 231st episode of the Intergalactic Peace Coalition podcast. We are officially in the books. Thank you all that tuned in live, and thanks for listening after the fact if you tune in while you're driving around or whatever. Hope to see you guys again on the next episode. But until then, for Sean and Ben, I'm Zach, and we'll see you next time. Until then. Good night, everyone.
This podcast is sponsored in part by Benjamin Hart.
That's me.
And yours truly, Zach Arnold.
And by participation from listeners like you. So let's tune in to another episode of
IPC.
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 IPC. The Intergalactic Peace Coalition Podcast.
All the galaxies.
All for you.